Here from the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, we have the pleasure to interview Robert Treviño.
Hey,
Bienvenido a Mujer Latina Today.
Mucho gusto.
So, welcome. This is the first time in Cincinnati?
Yes, actually, well, I was here a long time ago, about 6 years ago, when I was a bassoonist. I played the fagot, and I was coming here to study with the principal bassoonist of the Cincinnati Symphony, and I ended up going to school somewhere else, but that was my first time in Cincinnati. And then the next time I got to come here was to conduct the orchestra, and now I live here with my wife, and it's very nice.
You were born in Fort Worth, Texas.
Yes, that's right.
And your story is just unbelievable. I was just reading about you. Listen to the radio at 8 years old. You listen to Mozart.
Oh, what
the
did you?
Requiem. And I thought, at 8-year-old listening to Requiem, and he said, I wanna, whatever it is, I wanna be that. I wanna do that. So tell me about that journey of learning and the passion that you found when you were 8 years old.
Yeah, I mean, I came from I wouldn't even say middle class at the time, but it was a very, my family was aspiring to be middle class, because my father was 18 when I was born, my mother was 17, is, you could say in some ways, is not a atypical story. And they got married, I was born, and my father did the best he could to move us out of the barrio and move into the Fort Worth area, this very nice neighborhood. I remember at the time I was the only Mexican kid in my neighborhood. But my parents were insistent that I had a great education, so I went to a very good school, and I was in the car one day and I heard this Mozart Requiem on the radio. My father was flipping through the channels looking for some Santana, and I heard something in the middle of that, and I said, Dad, can you go back to that? He goes back, and I listened to it, and I said, whatever this is, I'm going to do it. Come to find out shortly after that, that was being a musician. I heard the bassoon on a recording of Peter and the Wolf, and I said, I'm going to play the bassoon, and a few months later I was watching PBS, and Sergio Ozawa was conducting the Boston Symphony, and I said, I'm going to be a conductor. My parents thought it was very cute. It's like having a kid say, oh, I'm going to be a police officer, or something like this. And, we didn't have a lot of means, so there was nothing my family could do to push me along, where they could sign me up for lessons, piano lessons. There was no money for that.
Yes,
There's just no money for that at all. And it wasn't until I was in
13 years old.
13 years old, yes. Until I was in middle school that they offered in school, your first elective in Texas, you could have band. And I chose to pick up the bassoon. I walked right into the front door, walked straight up to the teacher, and I said, I want to play the bassoon. And she goes, excuse me? And I go, yes, I want to play the bassoon. She goes, no, I think maybe, because of my lips or something, I should play the trombone. And I said, bassoon or nothing. And she was like, okay then, I'll let you play the bassoon. And, it was a very hard time for me because, see, I came from a family that didn't know anything about what I was trying to do. I mean, they really didn't know what I was trying to do. And so I didn't have some of the guidance that maybe some of my colleagues have had. One of the things that was the biggest rude awakening for me was when I went to do my first audition after playing my bassoon for a first year. I was in a class of 4 bassoonists, and you had to audition to see whether you went to the second band or went to the honor band. And I went in, and I thought I had this image in my mind that I was the next Mozart, because I love music so much, and I said, oh, this is what I'm going to do. And I must be making beautiful music all the time. Soon I'm going to start writing my symphony and such. And I went into this audition, and I got put in the second band. I didn't get first chair in the top band. And I remember this one classmate of mine said, Treviño, you're never going to amount to anything. And I was so devastated. I was so sad. I went home, I cried for a day. And then I said, you know what? No, that's not how I'm going to go down. That's not what I'm going to do. I just picked up my bassoon, and that day forward, I practiced 6 hours a day. The next time I auditioned, I beat everybody. Then I got all these awards, and then everything went on. Because then I realized I'm not some supernaturally talented human being. I'm like everyone else. I have to work very hard.
Well, he's only 26 years old.
28 now. 28 now. Yeah, 2 years plus.
But bassoon to conductor.
Yeah.
So why do you want to conduct an orchestra?
Well, I always knew I wanted to be a conductor.
Oh,
so yes.
Mozart, remember Requiem.
Yes, yeah, that's right. And so when I started playing the bassoon, I was very lucky. And this is the story that has happened throughout my entire life. That I've always been lucky. That my bassoon teacher at the time in middle school, who was my private teacher, he had started his degree as a conductor. And when it was after a year studying bassoon with him, my parents didn't have money to send me to a private teacher, which is how you usually get better at your instrument. You see someone one-on-one and work on their instrument. So I worked for a whole summer and saved up every dollar of my money. And that next year I signed up for lessons, and at the time it was $18 for 30 minutes, which was a lot of money, especially to a 13-year-old. But I had saved a couple $100, so I could afford it. And I just gave the money to my mother, and then she would deposit it and write a check so that it never looked like it was coming from me. And this went on for a while with my bassoon teacher until one day he first off found out that I was paying for my own lessons. Somehow a mistake had happened. And he got so upset, he said, "I'm never charging you again." And he gave me lessons for free from that day forward. And not only did I get one lesson a week, but all of a sudden I went to having 2 lessons a week, to 3 lessons a week, to sometimes I'd have a lesson every other day. Because he would say, "Okay, now work up all these different things." I'd go home and I'd work all of it up. And I wouldn't sleep until 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd sleep for 2 hours and then go back to school. And I'd go and play it for him the next day, and it was ready. And then he'd say, "Well, okay, now we need to keep having more lessons in order to do that," which is why I progressed so quickly. And I told him, Mr. Hall, which is his name, Charles Hall, I said, I really want to be a conductor though. And so I went to his house. He gave me a score. He had a score cabinet and said, "Which score do you want to learn first?" So I see Mozart, Beethoven, and I see the Stravinsky, the Rite of Spring. So I said, I open it up. I don't even know how to read half of the rhythms in this piece yet. And I said, "This is the one." Next week I came back, I could conduct through the piece for him. And so I started my conducting like that. And then I put together an orchestra, and then I just I got very lucky. I kept having people who saw me and liked what I did and believed in me, and they kept donating their time and helping me out.
From 13 years old to the 20 years old, the first you conduct.
The first time I conducted in Europe was 20. My
20.
first concert was 16.
16
in Texas. Yeah.
And how was it, that first? You say, "Well, man, I'm not too bad. I should go keep doing it, maybe."
Oh, no, I thought I was great. I thought it was really good. Now I look back at it and I think, wow, it was really not very good. But, this is what happens when you're a beginner. You're going to not be good until you are. And then, I kept doing concerts, and they kept getting better, and I kept feeling more comfortable.
Sorry, I read that you said that you want to conduct music because you want to change the world. Is
That's
correct?
right, yeah.
Why? How?
Well, for me, I remember my parents telling me something that they always told me: education was my way into a better future for myself. That education was going to be the way out. And it was. But what turned out to be more of a godsend was music for me. Music changed my life. I could have ended up in a lot of different places, a lot of different ways, and yet music elevated me as a human being to be more compassionate, to be more traveled, to be more knowledgeable, learned. And I told my wife this a few weeks ago. I said, "I have the best life in the world. I really have nothing to complain about. I have a beautiful wife. I have a family I love. I have so much, and every day I wake up, I get to make music." And why music can change the world? It's because somehow I feel that not even just classical music, but music in general changes people. When you hear that song that you danced at your wedding to, when you hear that song that you identified as your high school alma mater, or you hear that song that you remember being played at your birthday, or that song you heard at a funeral, or whatever it is, somehow music is a way in which people of all cultures, all styles, define their lives. You can remember pieces, sometimes the Beatles or whatever person it is, Beethoven.
Associated with happy times.
Or even sad times.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And so, in a way, I feel that humans catalog their life with music. And that when you go to give a performance, you're giving somebody the opportunity to build a lasting impression in a way that they never would have thought that they would have gotten from an experience. So if they come to a concert that I'm conducting, and it's, for example, these concerts are outside, okay, and maybe it's really hot, but maybe the kids are there, and the father and the mother are there together, and maybe dad's been out of town a lot on work, mom has been this, whatever the problems may have been from the year, everybody's there all of a sudden. and there's this music, and maybe they don't like that piece, maybe they don't like that piece, but that piece was cool, man. Did you hear the trumpets? Oh wow, that was so amazing. Or this piece is amazing, and whatever. And then it's sunny outside, and then Dad says, hey, go get a soda pop, you know. And then, you know, you go and get a soda, and you're sitting there. Something about that moment could be perfect, and that moment of perfection can be even that much more memorable because of the music.
Well, you have conducted operas. You have conducted, you know, have traveled all over the world. You have seen the faces and know the orchestras. So what did you like the most about conducting? Because I know that you're in the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra and the POPS, but you know, what did you like the most? And what is your favorite opera?
Okay. Well, I have a hard time with the favorite opera. It's really hard for me. I love Tosca, I love La Bohème, I love Il Trovatore, I love Wagner, I love Lulu by Berg. My tastes are very, very eclectic. I have a very hard time narrowing that down. But with what do I like about conducting? This is something very interesting. I think it is. What I have noticed in my short time in working with people and traveling the world and working with musicians, and not even just musicians, with people in general, is that people are passionate. Everybody is passionate. And for one reason or another, society, life, it puts a damper on that. People hold back their passions. You know, you're in the office, you can't be the most passionate person. You have to do your job and be dutiful. You know, if you're too passionate and get upset that the company is doing the thing you don't want, yeah, you're going to get fired, things like that. You know, you're talking to your husband or your wife. If you're too emotional when you're dealing with it, maybe the discussion will turn into a fight.
Yeah.
And all of this, everybody always pulls back on their emotions in almost everything I can see. And I have a hard time doing this. And this is why I think I'm good at being a conductor, because one of the things about being a conductor is that you have to show in unquestionable terms how you feel about the music. You have to show everything about it. And I think audiences see that, which is why audiences so often just look at the conductor when the concerts are happening. They're like, wow, he's so passionate, or he's kind of cold, or whatever it may be. And musicians are the same way. Musicians, for one reason or another, have in some way become, they pull back their emotions a little bit for the sake of ensemble, continuity, being an orchestra, and being able to get along with each other. And I think when you're conducting, the thing I love the most, yes, you have to help them play the music, but when you can be so unashamed of how much you love music, as I do, I'm so unashamed of it. For most people, being that open about how much they love something would be the equivalent to walking around naked, you know. But I don't have a problem with that. And pulling out all of that emotional, that all the way I feel about it, without any hesitation. Other people see that, and instantaneously, those walls that they put up to hold back their emotions come down. And as a conductor, when you can do that for an orchestra, then you have tapped into the personal desires, wishes, and dreams of every person who's on stage. And yes, they're still playing like an orchestra, but now suddenly it's not just an orchestra, it's 70 people speaking as an orchestra with love, excitement, enthusiasm, passion, sadness, whatever the emotion is. And at that point, when it comes to the audience member, you're sitting there and you're listening to this piece of music, and it is so visceral, it is so moving, that suddenly your walls come down too. And then you can sit there. I've seen audiences cry. I've actually had members come up to my concerts, people from an audience come backstage in tears and saying, I needed that so much. Or somebody saying, you know, my father died recently, and everything you did about this piece reminded me that life is going to be okay, or something like this. And when that happens, or musicians come up to me and say, I forgot what it's like to be able to be that way on stage, my job is then
and listen to you, and what I read about you, that you really want to change the world with music, and I can see that you're changing the world with, you know, conducting, and when you talk about music and your passion. So when you look back all your life, and it is incredible, you pinch yourself, you think, I did it, oh, I always knew it.
No, I don't think I did it. I'm in the middle of doing it. I'm trying my best. the thing is that, you know, I'm 28, and every day I wake up and I go and I reevaluate what I've done, and I look at what I'm trying to do on my next concert. And it's funny, the more I do it, the less I think I know about it. And not only the less I think I know about it, but the more I realize it, how much more I realize I don't know, and how much more there is to be done.
And you would like to share a message with Hispanic Latino community, or anybody that can listen to this wonderful interview?
Yeah, you know, music is great. Music is the way that we catalog our life. I say that 100 times, and I won't stop saying it, but enjoy your life. Come hear a concert, come enjoy the music. It's going to be fantastic. Feel the passion, feel the excitement, and let yourself be moved. Come to the concert to be moved.
Well, welcome to Cincinnati. We're thrilled to have you here, and we cannot wait to have another interview and talk about another concert. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.